What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Dope Life Podcast, the dopest podcast ever. And I'm, of course, your host, Coach AJ, Dope Life Coach, the dopest life coach out there. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another episode. And if you be oh so lovely and dope and leave us a rating and a review, greatly appreciate it so our podcast can get out to dope individuals just like yourself. So today I have two very special guests. They're going to talk about business, making money, and making sense of money. Because let's be honest, money is a big part of 2025. We're hearing a lot about it in terms of the tariffs and business and just surviving in this world. So I'm not going to really introduce them. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And I'm going to twist it over to you guys. Go ahead, tell the people about yourself, where they can find you on your socials.
So my name is Sue Lorray. I am a financial coach and I have over 25 years of financial experience. I work with one of the top 5 major banks in Canada. And so I use that expertise and knowledge to coach individuals who are looking for some financial stability and also to build legacy wealth as well.
And I'm Mark Lorray, and I'm a business coach. And my passion is to help business owners to grow their business, specifically in lead generation and sales. And I started my business when I was first business when I was 22 years old. I only had 23 years old, and I had $22 and a penny to my name, and I grew that business, learned a lot along the way about sales, lead generation, how to start something from scratch, from zero with with very, very limited resources, and to grow to 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, and sell it, and then eventually go on to do much of the same in other businesses. So that's my passion. That's who we are. And that's,
Yeah. And together we co-founded our business, Excel No Excuses, and joined forces in terms of our coaching. And we can be found on social media. I can be found on Instagram under Sue Lorray. We have our Excel No Excuses page at Excel No Excuses.
Yeah.
And I'm also on Facebook, Sue Lorray.
Yeah, or you can find me Mark Lorray at Instagram. Yeah, so at Mark Lorray.
Okay, dope. Now, could we just give a shout out to not only, I think it's like our first couple I've ever interviewed on the podcast. You guys are the absolute first. And I like the fact that you guys are in sync. I also like the fact that Mark said ladies first. I mean, like that shows a lot of integrity right there. Shout out to you. But what let's just get right into it because we're talking about money. And I feel that is such a massive conversation a lot of us are having in this day and age with everything that's going on in the climate of the world in general. What are some money beliefs that you think are holding people back right now?
Well, there's a few. I think that it's just chaos right now with the economy and everything going on. And there's a fear of not wanting to invest because we've seen the stock market fluctuate. And a lot of people are pulling their funds out that they would have invested into market or mutual funds because we're seeing a drop. And so, that is an essential source of future savings. But also there are some people who invest to use the returns that they get to survive for their everyday living or their cost of living expenses. So, that is one. Do I invest? Do I still save? Another would be, I need to hold on to all my money. And with the cost of inflation as well, it's budgeting. A lot of people, unfortunately, I even have some close friends who've been laid off, and it's now that the struggle is real in terms of finance and how do we survive? So it's, I need to be able to make things work from a day-to-day perspective. And it's, how do I make that happen? Or I just don't have enough money anymore. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. So those are some really key concerns right now.
Yeah. Another part of it I would say is also, especially being a business coach and being in business, people that want to have a multiple source of income or don't know how to have multiple sources of income apart from the investments and traditional investments and that, like Sue was just talking about, right? Being able to start something on the side. If you have a job, you don't want to go quitting your job now, but you can literally get started with something that, your passion and turn that into income for yourself. So a lot of times people don't know where to start. There's so much that goes into that, but that's probably one of the things that holds people back from jumping out and generating multiple streams of income for themselves.
I'm glad that you guys mentioned like the climate of where we are because people are having to make some very difficult decisions. They're pulling back probably on certain investments they had for reasons of they may be out of a job at the moment and their best thing to do is to pull out at the moment. And and use the money just to survive and to live, right? While they find the next, next career, next job, whatever gig they're looking at. In this moment in the climate that we're in, how do you do you help someone move out of like the scarcity mindset and hold them in the abundance thinking of that either their investments or their business can still grow in this season? Because it's kind of scary at the moment.
It
Yeah,
is. It
yeah,
is.
yeah. The one thing I'd probably say, you hit a word on the nail right there, mindset. That's
Mm.
probably before anything else, it's really about your mindset. And, as we said, there's a lot that's going on in the world right now, a lot in the news, that we're hearing about. It changes like daily. I think even before, as we jump on this podcast recording, something must have changed between the last couple of minutes
Absolutely.
to now. It's probably the craziest times we've ever lived in. However, we can get through anything with a certain type of mindset, right? We got to have that positive mindset. Be careful of what you put into your mind and what you're taking in, right? So
Hmm.
notice I haven't even got onto the anything to do with money as yet, because
Yeah.
a lot of it has to do with the way that you're thinking, what you're thinking, what you're taking in, what kind of information that you're taking in, right? And know how to navigate from there. So we want to know what's going on in the world and what's happening in the news, but not to be so bogged down to the point where it gets you stressed and then it takes over any actions that you would take, right? So I'd probably say that's probably the first thing is your mindset and surrounding. The second will probably be surrounding yourself with the right kind of people, because that will also help with
1,000%.
the mindset shift to do what you need to do, whether it's investing traditionally, saving money, or starting a little side hustle or business, your
Hmm.
group of friends. The people in your corner can definitely help you for sure.
Yeah. I want to say, in terms of actionable steps, the number one is to do a review, complete a review of your financial plan and your
Yeah.
goals, because that's where it starts, is where am I at right now? Because that's almost preventative maintenance in a way, I want to say, because we know that things are up and down. So take a look at where you're at. What do I have saved? How much do I have saved? Do I have enough for that rainy day? Is that emergency fund set up? How much do I have set aside? Am I able to budget? Look at my budget. What am I spending my money on? What's going in? What's coming out? That kind of thing. That's the number one step, is in order to proactively set yourself up, is to understand your finances, understand what you're doing with your money, and then you can move on from there. Because once you have that understanding, you'll feel more secure in yourself and what's happening with your finances. So that's part of the prep work, I want to say. Number one
Mm-hmm.
step.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of you for sure. What like Mark said in terms of mindset, Mark knows I'm a massive big person on mindset, and if you put your mind through almost anything and you put intention behind it, it could definitely bloom into something bigger than you can even think. But it's also like staying on course, right? Like there's no journey you can go on, even when it comes towards your finances. Whether you're an entrepreneur or just working day to day, where it's going to always be smooth, right? Like it's not always going to be a smooth ride. It's kind of like a river in a sense. I'm using an analogy my mother gave me. The Caribbean brain is in my head, but it's kind of like a river in a sense where sometimes it's rocky and it's bumpy, and sometimes it's really really calm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Right.
just you kind of have to go through the course of it all. And you actually have to set up your mind to say, okay, I know that it's not always going to be as smooth as always going to be. There's going to be some bumpy moments. There's going to be rocks. There's going to be turbulence. But if you kind of stay on course, even in those tough moments, you could still work through all of it, right? Like you could still manage and work through all of it. So I like the fact that you both said that. And also with what you said there, Sue, talking about taking the actionable steps of reflecting on where you are. Taking those actionable steps and reflecting of where you are is important. Because if you're not taking those steps of being proactive, of reflecting, let's say I do it once a month where I look at my expenses. Okay, what did we spend? Do we have any extra money? Can I save a little extra? There's a couple extra bucks I could put aside. Like just having those moments of sitting back to be proactive makes a massive, massive change. So I ask you this, because now that we're talking about money and business, what are some habits, and I think you touched a little bit on it, Sue, there, but what are some habits that people can maintain or introduce to build like a strong foundation in their business or even just their regular finances?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think first of all, you need to understand your money personality, and that's actually something that I'm going to
Ooh.
be talking about in an upcoming workshop that we have next month. You really have to understand how you spend and how you save.
Yep.
right? This is
Yeah.
all your money.
Yes.
Some of us are spenders, some of us are savers, and some of us are in between. And when you have an understanding of that, of your money personality, you can understand, okay, am I that heavy spender and I need to curb that habit? Or am I a saver and okay, I do have a little room, there's wiggle room there to spend if I needed to, right? Because that can impact you on a personal level. And even in business, like it's the same. It relates to both business and in personal. You gotta complete a review. You gotta look at what's happening with your money, your cash flow, and then understand, am I a heavy spender in the business? Do I, return on investment is important in a business, but, is it really necessary? Am I spending too much on, subscriptions and, streaming? Because I know there's quite a few people who don't, use cable TV anymore and they're streaming different
Everything.
channels.
Yeah.
That's up. And Uber, I mean, it's easy to kind of fall back and, want to spend money on takeout and that kind of thing. But when you really look at it and look at the cost of making a meal that can, carry you over a couple of days versus just that one meal that, can be pretty expensive, you can cut your costs that way also.
Yeah, 1000%. And I just want to add in there, you mentioned something which I had to learn. How you spend your money is I also emotionally spend sometimes. And I had
Yes.
to correct myself on that where, things happen. It's great. Let's go spend. I'm feeling low. Let's go spend.
Yeah.
And then after you realize that it was just an emotion that I was feeding, a void that I was feeding versus me just dealing with that on probably the most freest way of doing it, writing it out, talking to someone, talking to myself and acknowledging that you're spending emotionally because of X, Y, and Z versus, as you said, meal prepping and taking care of yourself, ways that cost you zero or very low amounts of money.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm glad that you discussed that as well. I don't know if you want to touch on that, Mark, a bit.
Yeah, no, she said it all. Yeah. No, there's habits in terms of it's funny because as you were talking, I was thinking about couples. There's Sue mentioned the money personalities, which we're going to go through in our workshop that we have coming up in May. It's good to understand your personality. So specifically speaking to say couples, right? Or individuals in relationships or even business partners, it's good to know each other's money personality and know how to work it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where I would say communication, transparency. Yeah,
Yep.
communication is huge because you won't be successful, as a unit if you're not in the same boat. You could be in the same boat, but you're on different sides. You got to be going the same direction, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'd probably say that's just a thought that I had, right there that communicating, having that understanding each other's money personality and communicating and working it, coming up with a game plan will help.
And having those conversations, because financial conversations can be very difficult.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's important to sit down and talk and, like I said, be transparent about what's happening with budget, what's going on with the money and for both partners, whether it's, personal or in business, that they have a good understanding of what's happening because no one wants to be blindsided in a bad situation. So
Yeah.
And transparency is the biggest word when it comes towards finances, right? With yourself and with others that are close, going to be connected to you, especially if in a relationship, partnership, whatever. It's important because, yeah, like you said, both of you said it, that they need to know where you are, right? And then they can make the decision how to move forward. But it's also they get to know where you are. If, like myself, I emotionally spend, they can ask, hey, do you really need that right now?
yeah.
Like, thanks for checking me because,
The
I probably would
accountability
have not.
piece.
Yeah, the accountability piece, right? It's good to know that if it could be your accountability partner in that particular topic where they say, yeah, do you really need it? I'm just checking. You're like, you know what? Thank you for letting me know because there's probably a good chance I didn't really need it at all.
Yeah.
But by having that conversation, which is sometimes difficult, but very much needed, whether it's a business or personal aspect for that transparency piece, right? It's very, very important because unfortunately, we know in a lot of relationships and business partnerships, one of the biggest issues of breaking those completely and those severing ties and ending is money in the
Yes,
end, right?
makes
Not
sense.
having that conversation, the actual transparent conversation surrounding money.
Yeah.
Being that the both of you work together and you also coach people throughout their emotionally heavy financial decisions. Like how do you do that? Like how do you coach people through those very heavy emotional, because we're talking about emotional spending and stuff like that. Like how do you coach people through that?
Yeah. So I actually had a client recently that I helped. A younger client, a parent had passed away. And so there was a bit of emotional spending that was happening and now becoming heavier on the debt side. So not really saving and just way down now with all of this debt. But basically what I do, or what we would do, is we curate our coaching program to meet the individual's needs. So
Mm.
we would do, we sit down, we have a conversation with them, get an understanding, go through their money personality and a little bit of their history, just to see where they're at. And then what I did with my particular client is I did determine that there was that emotional spend happening, but it was more with the takeout and using the credit for that. And now also, in addition, there's that double whammy of feeling weighed down and bogged down because there's this debt that needs to be repaid. So basically, we created a program, went through the budget. Hey, where's there extra funds coming in? Or instead of, spending on takeout, could you make a meal instead? And do you really need to spend on the takeout? Just like you were saying, Coach AJ, right? Like you need that person to check you and say, hey, do you really need to be doing that? And so that's what we looked at, and looked at even the bank account. I went through the bank account statements to see what they were spending on, this person was spending on. And so that's where we're able to cut it down and say, hey, your goal is to save X amount of dollars by the end of the month. And then this X amount of dollars is to go towards paying down the debt. So there's an actionable steps and an actionable plan that's realistic for that individual. And so they're not feeling like, hey, I can't do this. And then, the check-in with them as well to see if they're on track or are they struggling. And it's okay. Sometimes we're going to have that 1 week or, this one moment where we're like, I just really want that takeout. We're not here to judge, right?
Yeah.
We're all human. It's going to happen. And so, it's like, okay, yeah, that happened. Why did it happen? Or, what caused you, what triggered you to want to do that when you yourself knew that maybe it wasn't the best choice for you. So, we do things like that. But the key is curating the coaching program so that it meets the individual's needs and so that we're on that trajectory to getting them to where they need to be and to achieving that goal.
Yeah, another thing I'd probably say is like we're transparent with our clients because we've all been through stuff. We included, but we've been through, things where times where we, I don't know if we want to share it here, but yeah, we've been times where we, hit rock bottom, you know what I mean? Had looking for two nickels to rub together kind of thing where we've been there. And so we know what that is. And so, even as it relates to business, right, I shared earlier, I started the business from the ground up, $22. Like, obviously I had to go through a lot of things in order to get it to pass, the 6-figure mark, right? So there's a lot of learning there. So we share a lot of our own experiences and we're relatable. And that's what people want, right? People want someone that they know, like, and trust. But, do you understand? Do you really get what I'm saying? Or you just got it from a book, you know? Yeah.
And I think I'm going to toot our horns here and say I think that's what makes us unique as coaches is that we've actually walked that path of struggle, financial struggle, personal struggles. And so just because, I'm a banker and I, talk about finances and I do these coachings, I'm not coming just from that place of knowledge and expertise. I'm coming from a place of knowing what it's like to have struggled at one point. Right. And being a mom with kids and only having $40 groceries for the week to spend and to feed them. Like I can speak to that, we've lived experiences that we've been through. So when we coach our clients, like Mark said, we're very transparent with them and very honest with them because it's not just, glossy. It's all glossy and flossy, right?
Yeah.
It's coming from a place of real.
I like the fact that you talked about the transparency with your clients. I think that part is extremely important as a coach. And I've been coaching for well over 15 years now. And one of the things that I've learned the most that a lot of my clients tell me back is the fact that they're able to relate to me. And I always tell them I am not perfect. As much people think I got all my shit together, I'm just like, at the end of the day, I'm human.
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted. I make mistakes. I'm human. The only difference is now I don't sit in situations for too long. I have the tools to get out of it. I know how to pivot. I know what steps I need to take versus feeling stuck all the time. It's that sense of relatability is it. We even as coaches need it too, right? If we're going to someone and we want to know that we're able to understand them on a level of, okay, so not only are they expertise because they've studied this particular topic, but they've also lived it. Like they've
Lived it.
gone through
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? They can recognize what it means to get yourself stuck out of the mud. Like, like I'm very transparent when it comes towards stuff like my mental health, the things that I've learned, my financial shortcomings sometimes that I've been through myself, and how I've gotten out of it and still getting out of it to some degree, and how we're human at the end of the day. That's
Yeah.
it. We are human beings. We make mistakes, and the habits that we learn throughout the ways is just there to help other people. We're giving back to the community that has given us so much, and I definitely could relate to that. And you kind of talked about mistakes. I don't really like the word mistakes. I don't want to use that. I kind of see them as like the pivotal moments where we pivot in life, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, and you talked about going through like having $40 for groceries and just kind of making it work with you and your family. So, in those moments, what are some of the lessons that you've learned that has turned into some of your greatest moments in your life, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. So, the one thing is, again, when it comes to mindset, is knowing that that was going to be temporary. Because as a human being, when you're struggling, you don't always feel that way. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's sad. It's like, how did my life come to this? And it's sad that I can't provide for my kids the way that I want to provide for them. But having that mindset that this is temporary, that I know that I'm going to get out of this, it's just based on circumstance at the time. And so, rising on coming out of that was just, things improved. And then again, making those smart financial choices and just being very careful and executing a plan that
Yeah.
helped me to overcome that and put myself in a better position. And then looking back and reflecting and saying, okay, hey, what was it that I did that should something like this happen, I could do it differently for the next time so it doesn't happen again. And then, and then feeling that sense of pride in myself that I've come from difficulty and look where I am now.
How about you, Mark? Anything that you've ever like kind of sat back and just been like, dang, and turned that situation into a lesson to move forward?
Yeah. Well, I've been through a lot of experiences. I've experienced homelessness for a short time many years ago. So I know what that feels like. I went through bankruptcy. I mean, everything you could think of, I've kind of been through it all. But I have a mindset, what we both do. No excuses. It's the name of the business.
Mm-hmm.
Sell no excuses. A no excuse mindset that you can overcome anything that you've been through. You can overcome it in some way. It may not be the way that you want it to or the way you think, but you'll get through it, right? We can all get
Mm-hmm.
up again. And again, that goes back to mindset, having the right people in your life. For me, it's also, or for us, it's also our faith. That's a part of it. So it's not just one thing. There's
It's multiple things. Yeah.
multiple things, right? So, but I'd say it's that mindset of no excuses, right? Having that. So that I look back all the time. I mean, yeah, I'm an emotional guy, so sometimes I'll have a moment. I'm like, what's going on now? I'm so grateful because
Yeah, I was
so
gonna
many
say it's
things.
those gratitude moments
Yeah,
that you're going
exactly.
through. I know what those are about.
Right? You're like,
They're
wow, like,
good, yeah, but they're good
yeah,
to have
yeah,
because there's moments where I think, especially as like as an entrepreneur who also has a job as well, I'm always on a go go go, and I think Sue, you could probably relate to this as well. Mark, you could relate to this where we're just go go go, and
yeah,
as the moves happen, we forget to really realize that these are the moments that we've manifested, prayed for, talked about for
Yes.
years.
yeah,
And we forget to celebrate them sometimes because they've happened and then we move the goalposts. But it's important to take a step back and not move the goalposts for a moment and just realize, wait a minute, pause. This is something that I've been talking about for years. And because I've been so consistent, dang, I actually accomplished it.
yeah,
Those moments are so important more than even just accomplishing the goal. It's just recognizing the journey. Because I always say the journey is bigger than the goal. The goal is great,
yeah,
but the journey, you get far more gems, far more experience, far more opportunities, and just connections. For example, like how we met.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like a random thing, but it shows like if you just take those leaps of faith and you actually stand on the different parts of your life that make up of who you are, like your faith, like your go-getter type of mentality, the habits, all of that is combined to make you who you are, and which also helps shift this right here, your
Yeah.
mhm,
mindset into where you need to be. So you stepping back, I wouldn't even say you're an emotional guy, you're acknowledging your hard work.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
And many, I'm going to speak on it, many men do not even really do that. So
Yeah.
the fact that you're taking a step back, I want you to give yourself grace, because that's something that my father never did, and maybe your father never did, because they didn't know how to do it, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that you're doing it is huge, because you're also showing your kids, okay, I got to make sure I celebrate these moments. So it's just like a trickling effect. So please give yourself some grace
Yes.
Yeah.
for expressing that, because to me that's huge.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
To
Hopefully
me
he
that's
listens to you because I try to tell him that too.
I hope now you're getting it from two women. I don't know what else to do. Like, you want to bring my mama involved? Like, that'll be a third. But like, wait. So I'm just gonna kind of like ask a few more questions, but I really want to ask in terms of like one more like finance question. What's one thing that, because being like we're all from like we're immigrant background, and financial discussions are difficult to have because we are unlearning some of the stuff that we've learned from our elders, right?
Yes.
So, if you could have a conversation with your own younger self, what would you tell him or her in terms of financial freedom?
Yeah. One of the key things I would say is plan for long term, because a lot of when we set a goal, and a lot of things we were taught was about in the moment and do it now, make this decision for now. But you have to think about the decision that you're making and what are the consequences of that, and what does that look like years from now,
Yeah.
and how is that going to impact you, because that could actually change or pivot your decision for certain things when it comes to finances, right? Because when you look at a purchase of a home, that's a long-term decision. So
Yeah.
okay, you have to save for the long term, right? When you look at that in relation to that. So I mean, that I think is what I would have told myself, is don't make that decision based on now, think about the long term, and what you need to do to set yourself up.
Yeah. And I'd probably say learn to duplicate yourself early. In other words, start a business and learn that process of, starting something and then bringing some of your friends and your cousins,
Mm.
get them involved in understanding or learning from an early age how to duplicate and turn your money, let your money work for you rather than you working for your money.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's one thing that they don't teach that really in school.
No.
And really wish they did. Yeah.
Yeah, and sorry, Coach AJ, if I can add a second one also. This one's
Go ahead. Go
huge
ahead.
because it was very common, talking about West Indian
Yeah.
background, is
Uh huh.
when you decide to do something, the feedback you get is why you want to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So common.
Sadly.
True.
Do not let anybody tarnish those
Yeah.
dreams or put you down.
Yeah.
Always trust your instincts and don't surround yourself with that negativity. That's what I would
Yeah.
have told myself, because a lot of times I was railroaded and I should have moved forward with something that I wanted to do that was for the betterment of myself and my family, and I didn't because I was told why you want to do that.
Yeah.
So don't listen to that kind of negativity.
And believe it or not, that's all rooted in like people pleasing, because
Yeah.
we've all kind of like looked at it as, okay, well, if mom and dad or auntie and uncle or whatever is telling me this is probably a stupid idea, like I want to keep them happy, so I just do it the way they do. They want me to do
Right.
it. But in the long run, when you look back, you're just like, I really shouldn't have listened to them,
Yeah.
because I should have just went all in and just did what I had to do that's gonna work. And if you fail, you fail. Like, it's not even really a failure. It's just like it's still propelling you to where you need to be anyways.
That's it. It's
You
the
know what I
learning
mean? It's
process.
yeah, it's part of the entire path. Like, your path is already made out for you. So maybe you just need to go through that and then take the gems to move forward. And that's
Mhm.
just part of your path. And that's okay. Right? Like, it's unfortunate that we are in the climate where we feel sometimes we still have to have other people's hearsay and naysayers in our ears. But if I can give anyone any advice that's listening to this right now when it comes towards their business, and I'm sure the two of you will agree, is that the naysayers don't matter. Hate to say it, whether they're blood or not blood. It's your life. You only got one. Okay, we're not a cat. We don't have 9 lives. So you only got one, and the best thing you could do is live it the way you want to live it.
Yeah.
Courageous, authentically being yourself. And the more that you tap into that, the more you will see that they will try to, creep up when things are starting to go well.
Mhm.
It's just they're not seeing the bricklaying being put down. All of a sudden, oh shoot, that's actually working. Yo, put me on.
Yeah.
No, because
Yeah.
you didn't believe me from the beginning, so I'm good. And kind of going back to what you said, Mark, is surrounding yourself, and I'm going to tap on that a little bit. It's important for you to surround yourself with the people that you can see that your future self will appreciate moving forward. right? Like, and even if it just means you have a conversation with yourself, like, yo, what do I need? What do I need right now to get to where you are? Subconsciously, they will tell you. They'll give you the plan out of what it is that you need to do, the steps you need to take, the habits. And sometimes the most difficult thing, and I think as a Caribbean child, it's very difficult to do, is releasing yourself from the things that no longer serve you.
Yeah.
That is difficult because it's the respect and honor aspect that comes into play, and you don't want to disrespect anyone. But I want you to think about this. By you respecting them, quote unquote, respecting them, you could be disrespecting yourself.
That's right.
So
100%.
it's very important for you to, as Sue and Mark both said, is to put yourself first in your situations to better yourself and better your life for the future long term, not just the short term, but the long game, like the full long game. I asked everyone this. I asked Mark this. You're gonna answer it again anyways, Mark, because it could change. What makes you feel the most dope?
What makes me feel the most dope? You
Yeah.
asked me that already?
I did, or maybe I didn't, but I'm pretty sure I've asked you sometimes. But I want to hear Sue's answer. So both of y'all have to answer the question. What makes you feel the most dope?
I love this question.
Okay,
we need to do some hard thinking right now.
Okay,
No,
you go
I'm
first
kidding.
then. But you know what, Coach? If I could just go back a little bit to what
Yeah,
we
go
were
ahead.
talking about for a moment, because even with my own experience, when I first started my first business, and I guess in certain cultures, like our culture, you know, you're not necessarily supported right away. You know what I mean? I had a business idea, and I thought right away, all my family will be my customers, and it turns out
Mm-hmm.
none of my family was my customers, right? They actually like called up the competitor, and I'm like watching the competitor doing what I would do, and I said I will do it for free. At that time, I didn't know, and I obviously didn't have people around me, that other business owners, other business people that were doing it, until eventually I learned to tap into that, and I learned so much. And it was almost like proving yourself in a way, like, yeah, I can do this, right? I was discouraged that my own family, and you know, God bless their soul. I'm not saying they're just going based on what they, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But they didn't support me to get going. But when I did, and they started to see, it's like a sit back, I'm
Mm-hmm.
Jamaican, so you know, am I do things, you know,
Yeah. Yep.
he's doing things now, right? And oh, he can see. So that even now, like even recently, we had a family member of mine that wanted to sit down with us and pick our brains about certain things. You know what I mean? So that has come full circle in that sense, where you know you become, at least for me, become that example, and that resource that I've been able to hire. At times, different times throughout my business, family members, the same ones that doubted, you know, that says, "Hey, I see that you got something, and I actually am in a situation. No problem." You know what I mean? So yeah, maybe that makes me feel dope. You know, that I
Yeah.
can
There
give
you
back to
go.
my own family, and yeah, this, you know, starting from scratch, starting from zero, not 100% sure of where I'm going, what I'm going to do, but I just did it. And even though I had the naysayers and the doubters, and that were in my own family, and have my own blood running through their veins, question certain things, I was able to bless them, you know, in different ways.
Yeah.
That's good. Oh, what makes me feel dope?
She dope already.
Oh, I love
There
it.
you go, Mark.
I want to say it's a couple things. First of all, I'm a person who needs to feel happy. So I think from a personal perspective, if I'm doing things that make me feel happy, whether it's going to the gym or dancing because I love music, that makes me feel dope. And when I have that time for myself. But I also feel dope when I can help other people. So when people are happy, not only myself, but other people are happy because maybe I've given back or I've helped them or given them advice or something like that, that makes me feel dope.
Yeah, being of service. Being
Yeah.
of service to others. Yeah, it is a pretty dope feeling. I agree with that. Well, I
Yeah.
want to thank you both for hopping on the podcast. And go ahead and tell the people about your upcoming event so that they can go and check it out.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah. May 17th and 18th. Well, that weekend, 17 and 18. Meet the Motivators. It's an organization. We can talk a little more about that. But yeah, we're workshop speakers. Topic there that we're going to be, our workshop that we're going to be doing is called Smart Money, Smart Business. You know, making dollars make sense in uncertain times. And
Yeah, so Meet the Motivators is a nonprofit organization, and this is their 10th year, so it's going to be big and really exciting. And basically, the organization educates through, they empower through education. And so there's going to be a number of speakers there, and we are one of the speakers that were invited. And so, yeah, we're going to have our workshop on May 17th. And then there's a nice gala dinner on Sunday, May 18th. So we're inviting everybody to come out, check it out. You can find more info on our social media pages and also on Meet the Motivators as well. But if you're interested in tickets, just reach out to us.
Yes. It's going to be an exciting weekend.
Yeah.
Gala. Get dressed up. Come to workshop and learn some stuff. And then the next day, you get dressed up and we celebrate. There's dancing, food.
Yeah.
Like it's a whole shebang.
Okay, dope. Well, thank you guys again for blessing the Dope Life podcast. I hope to have you guys back on once again and more times in the future, discuss like money and mindset, intention, because it's going to change and shift as we go throughout the year and beyond at least the next 4 years for sure.
Yes.
So again, y'all, please go and check them out. I'll have all of their socials in the description below. So go ahead and follow them, check them out, and check out their workshop as well. And I will see you all next week. As always, walk with peace and walk with love.